you have and enjoy Tramways board games and want to know which expansions to get?
In this video, we're going to show you an overview of what the Tramways different expansions bring to the game. Coming up. Hi, it's Tarrant.
And Stella from Meeple University, bringing you a variety of quality board game videos. On this channel we do a lot of how to play, playthrough, review, vlog and overview.
So if you're new here, please consider subscribing to our channel and do hit the bell to be notified on when we post new material.
Now let's get to the table.
In this video, we're going to take you through these 5 mini expansions to Tramways: the Grande Station, the Heart of Commerce, Exclusive Residences, Home of Industry, and Conductor's Manual. Across these 5 mini expansions, there is a total of 16 little sub-modules that you can integrate with the game. If you want to skip ahead to the specific one of these expansions that you have, you can use the index in the description for this video to go straight there. None of the expansion modules change the game drastically. Most of them add an extra sort of building, an extra sort of meeple or terrain, something that gives you a slightly different way of going about getting your victory points. It is not recommended that you play with every single one of these 16 modules at once. For a bit of variety, consider adding a few of these modules at a time, but don't go overboard. If you do decide to play with every single expansion at once, that's your prerogative. Please leave a comment in the comment section below to tell us how well or not well that went for you. The red expansion is the Grande Station expansion, and this comes with 4 sub-modules: the Station module, the Stock Exchange module, the Park module, and the Station Master module. The first sub-module of this expansion is the Station module. To set up the game, place the station tile somewhere on the board, as long as it's not over water, over a building, or over or adjacent to a parcel. Put 2 passengers onto the station. Then take the station building cards and, as is the case for the other buildings, place a number of those cards equal to the number of players minus 1. For the purposes of building and upgrading links, the station behaves exactly as any other building in the game. So, to build that sort of a link, you would need a rail worker, 1 rail tile, and 1 of the destinations. However, at the start of the game you have no way of having the station icon, so you have to play the card corresponding to the other end. The first time a player completes a link to the station, he or she takes one of the station building cards into his or her hand. Each player may have no more than 1 of these cards. Once the player has the card, he or she can use it for completing links, upgrading links, or moving passengers. A player gains no location bonus for moving a passenger to the station. The player simply gets the points for the links and the money for the links. However, if there was an empty space on the station when the passenger moved there, then the passenger remains on the board. It is not removed like normal. If a third passenger were moved into the station, only then would it be removed from the board. At the end of each round, in addition to refilling the type of building shown down here on the main board, the station is always refilled to 2 passengers after every round. The second sub-module in this expansion is the Stock Exchange module. To set up this module, take the Stock Exchange tile and place it anywhere on the board except for over a building or adjacent to a parcel. The Stock Exchange can go over water. No passengers are placed on the Stock Exchange. There are no cards or icons in the game relating to the Stock Exchange, and so when building or upgrading links connected to the Stock Exchange, the player has no choice but to use the icon matching the other end of the link. The Stock Exchange can never be a final destination for a passenger, but a passenger can move through it. And so in this case here, by playing a ticket and a leisure icon, this passenger could move through the Stock Exchange and to that leisure facility. This is worth $5 for the player who moved the passenger, which is paid out when the links are being paid out. So in this case, after gaining 2 happiness points for moving the passenger and then paying to use the leisure facility, the green player would gain 1 coin for this track, 5 coins for the Stock Exchange, and 1 for this track, for a total of 7. As such, while the Stock Exchange is a little harder to link to, it is a good way of getting some extra money in the game. The third module in this expansion is the park. To set this one up, place the park tile in a location on the board where all 4 of the orthogonally adjacent squares are either empty or mountains. In other words, it must be possible to build 4 links to the park. No passengers are placed on the park. As for the stock exchange, there is no card which shows an icon for the park, so building or upgrading a link that connects to the park requires the icon of the other end of that link. Likewise, as for the stock exchange, the park can never be a final destination, but you can move through the park on way to somewhere else. For example, this ticket and this leisure icon would allow this passenger to move through the park and complete his journey there. Moving a passenger through the park allows the player to reduce stress by 1. This is applied after gaining happiness points for the links, but before gaining the bonus of the final destination. In this way, a player who moves through the park en route to a commercial district would reduce stress before gaining it back at that destination bonus. And this can be important when evaluating whether you lose this score at the end of the stress track. The final module for this expansion is the Station Master module, and this must be played with the Station module. To set this module up, in addition to everything you do for the Station module, place the black Station Master passenger onto the station. The Station Master provides both an opportunity and a potential challenge to the player who is last in turn order in a given round. At some stage during the round, the player who was last in turn order must move the Station Master. This is a free action in that it doesn't use up one of the player's 3 potential actions for this round. And the player may take this free action either on the first or second round of moves. The player does need to pay the ticket icon in order to take this action, but does not need to play a destination icon. Then the Station Master is moved, but may only move along a single link. Happiness points, destination bonus and money are paid as normal for this movement, but movement is limited to that single link. Then lay the Station Master down for the rest of the round to prove that you've moved him for the round. At the end of the round, if you have failed to move the Station Master, you will gain 2 stress. A player who plans for the Station Master can get a reasonable benefit out of it, as it enables a movement and a location benefit for fewer cards than would normally be the case. But if you're not preparing to deal with the Station Master, then it can be quite negative. Suppose the orange player had to move the Station Master in this round. There are currently no adjacent orange links for the player to move it on, and if the player does not rectify that, then he or she is going to waste a card moving the Station Master along someone else's link. Therefore, a badly thought out Station Master action can be as bad as taking a void card. At the end of each round, stand the Station Master up again, ready to be moved by the next person who's forced to do so. The Heart of Commerce expansion comes with 3 sub-modules: the River, the Ticket Inspectors, and the Commerce variant. To play with the River expansion, use one or both of the tiles showing River. These are the C and G parcel tiles, and make sure you don't use the C or G parcel tiles from the base game. During the game, while players still can't build over lakes, they can build over a river with a straight rail bridge. However, it costs an additional 2 rail icons to do so. So, completing this link to the empty parcel would require a total of 4 rail icons, 3 for the bridge and 1 for the curve, as well as the residential icon. Players can never build curves on river. Bridges offer pretty scenery and therefore additional happiness, and so at the end of the game, each player's bridge over a river is worth a bonus 2 happiness points, in addition to the 3 points the link would already have brought. The next module is the Ticket Inspector module, and to set this module up, each player takes the meeple in his or her colour representing a ticket inspector. The ticket inspectors allow players to earn extra money at the cost of stress. In the first round, the ticket inspectors will not be on the board, but at the end of the first round and each subsequent round, each player may take his or her ticket inspector and place it onto one of his or her completed links. While the ticket inspector is on a link, that link will earn its owner an extra 75% of its money when a passenger uses it, rounded up. But it comes at the cost of an extra stress. So, if the green player made this traverse with a passenger, he or she would gain the normal $5 for that upgraded link, that's 3 plus 50% rounded up, and then would gain an extra 75% again, rounded up, which is another 4. Then the player gains 1 stress. This extra money and extra stress applies every time that link is used while the ticket inspector is there. So, suppose the purple player wanted to use this link in order to make a really long traverse. The purple player would have to pay the green player that full $9 when using that link, and the green player would still gain 1 extra stress, even though it's the purple player's turn. Therefore, players need to make sure that their ticket inspectors go into suitable locations where it can't be exploited by other players to just stress them out. Placing the ticket inspector on the board is optional, and moving it at the end of each round from a link to another completed link that you have completed is also optional. The third module in the Commerce expansion is the Commerce variant. In this module, the rules are altered so that the commerce buildings become the most important buildings in the game. In setup, give each player 2 blue discs. These will represent commerce buildings, as I'll explain shortly. And because the placement of parcels is so critical under the commerce variant, it is required that you draft your starting parcels rather than giving them out randomly. In the base game of Tramways, when you deliver a passenger to a commerce building, you immediately gain 1 stress and then either get a bonus $5 or a development card. Under the commerce variant, everyone loves commerce. It's not stressful. And so, in addition to not gaining any stress, you gain $10 instead of 5 and you'd get a development card. As such, the benefits for delivering passengers to commerce buildings increases dramatically. During the game, there is a new action available in the actions phase called Convert to Commerce. To take this action, spend 2 commerce icons, the blue C. Then take one of the 2 blue discs you got at the start of the game and place it onto a pre-printed building on the board. That is now a commerce building, and treat it as a commerce building. Ignore what is printed on the board underneath it. As a reward, gain 3 happiness points and 1 development card. Note, however, that producing a commerce building in this way does not give you a commerce building card, just a development card. The Green expansion, Exclusive Residences, comes with 4 submodules: Forest, New Building Cards, the Mayor, and New Residences. To play with the Forest module, use one or both of the forest tiles when you set up the city. Be sure that you do not use the A or B parcel tiles from the base game. People like forests, and so cutting down forests to build your tramways makes people unhappy. Consequently, you must lose 1 happiness point for every tile of rail that you place on a forest space. This is true even if you build a crossroad. You still have to cut down trees for that, even though the tile has already got a rail tile on there. And if you use an action to change the end of an incomplete link into another type of link, then you must lose the happiness point again. You must have happiness points to spend in order to build this rail. You cannot go below 0. The second module in the Green expansion is the New Building Cards, and this introduces 4 building cards, each of which is unique. To set up for this mode, start by dealing out the original building cards as normal, then gather them all up and shuffle them, and remove 4 at random. This may not remove an even number of each type of building. Then add the 4 new building cards into the display face up above those that are already there. This now sets the possible building card rewards that are available, as well as the number of buildings available. So, in the setup shown here, there'll only be 1 residential and 1 leisure building built for the game, and 3 commerce and 3 industrial. When you build one of these types of buildings, you can therefore choose from either of the available types matching that building. Note that there's a special icon here, the F icon, which comes into play when you use the yellow expansion, and that'll be later in this video. The third module of this expansion is the Mayor, and to set up to play with the Mayor, pick any one of the starting passengers on the board and replace them with the Mayor. The Mayor can be moved in exactly the same way as any other passenger, using a ticket and a destination. And the move is treated exactly as any other passenger move would be, with the player getting happiness points, a destination bonus, and money. The only differences are that the Mayor never leaves the board, simply stays in his destination waiting to be moved again, and a player who moves the Mayor gets 1 bonus happiness point as part of that move. So that last move would be worth 2 happiness points instead of 1, plus the bonus of a commerce destination, plus $1. The fourth module in the green expansion is the new residence module, and if you saw our section on the new commerce module in the blue expansion, this plays in a very similar way. Under this expansion, the residential buildings become a much more critical part of the game. In setup, give each player 2 of the dark green discs. These will represent buildings that players have converted into residential buildings. Because of the importance of the residential locations, you must draft your starting parcel cards instead of dealing them out randomly. When playing with this module, the location benefit for sending a passenger to a residential building changes. Now, instead of reducing stress, the player can take 1 development card from the development card ticket books into his or her hand. This means the residential buildings are a very good way of getting extra cards, but they're no longer the simple way of reducing stress that they are in the base game. The new residence module adds a new action, which is to create a new residential building. In order to take this action, the player must play 2 residential icons. Then takes one of the dark green tokens from his or her hand and places it onto a pre-printed building on the board. This building is now considered a residential building for all purposes in the game, and what's printed under it is no longer important. The player gains 3 happiness points and gets to take another development card from the development card ticket books into his or her hand. The player does not get a building card showing a residential icon for doing this, only the development card. The yellow expansion, Home of Industry, comes with 4 submodules: the Funfair, the Airports, the Super Rail Workers, and New Industry. The first module is the Funfair module, which adds the Funfair tile as a new, slightly different sort of leisure building. To set up the game, put the Funfair tile anywhere on the board except for over water or adjacent to a parcel. Do not place passengers onto the Funfair. When playing with this module, there are 2 ways that you can build or upgrade links to a Funfair tile. The first is by completing the link with the Funfair icon, which is present on the new building cards that come with the green expansion of the game. If you're not playing with that module, or if you don't have the matching card, then completing a link to the Funfair requires any 2 destination icons. Therefore, building this link requires a grey worker, 1 rail tile icon, and 2 destinations. Moving a passenger to the Funfair works in the same way. You either need a ticket and the Funfair icon from the green expansion, or a ticket and any 2 destination icons. After moving the passenger to the Funfair, remove it as usual, pay happiness points as usual, and then the player gets to use the Funfair's location action. This action is similar to a leisure centre. You can pay money in order to gain happiness points. However, instead of the diminishing returns that you get at a normal leisure centre, at a Funfair you get a flat rate of 1 happiness point for every $2. So visiting this centre and paying $12 would be worth 6 happiness points. Then, after the destination bonus, pay out money for the rail links as usual. The next module is the Airport. To set up for the Airport module, Place the 2 airport tiles anywhere you like on the board. Airports can't go adjacent to parcels, they can't go over the water, and the 2 airport tiles cannot be on orthogonally adjacent tiles. There are no cards in the game with an icon representing the airport, and so in order to build a link to an airport or upgrade that link, the player must spend the destination icon from the other end of the link. Similarly, players cannot send passengers to the airport as their final destination. However, passengers can move through the airports. So in this case, the player could spend a ticket and a commerce icon in order to move this passenger to that airport, fly the passenger to that airport, and then conclude at that commerce building. Using the airport links grants the player moving the passenger an extra $5, which is paid when paying out the links. And so on that last transfer, the player would have gained $1 for this link, $5 for the air travel, and $1 for this link, for a total of $7. The third module of the yellow expansion is the Super Rail Workers module, and in this you'll be using the yellow meeples representing more powerful rail workers. To set up the game, each player gets 1 normal grey worker and 1 yellow super worker. When using this module, the type of rail worker you must spend when building rail depends on the length of that rail. If you're building 1, 2 or 3 tiles of rail, then you must spend a grey worker. If you're building 4 or more tiles of rail in a single action, then you must spend your super rail worker. These are mutually exclusive. You cannot use a grey worker to build long rail, nor can you use a super worker to build short rail. You can gain your normal rail worker back in the normal ways, by visiting an industrial building or by using a rail worker icon off a card in the administration phase. The only way to get your super worker back is by spending the rail worker icon in the administration phase and paying $5. You cannot have more than a total of 2 rail workers, and you can never have more than 1 super worker at a time. The final module of this expansion is the new industry expansion, and if you've been watching this video the whole way through, this is fairly similar to the new residence and new commerce modules that came in the green and blue expansions. In this module, industry buildings become the most important sort of buildings in the game. To set up the game, give each player 2 yellow discs, which will represent new industrial buildings that they build. Because of the importance of industry building placement, you must draft your starting parcel cards rather than giving them out randomly. In the basic game of Tramways, when you deliver a passenger to an industrial building, you would gain 1 stress and 1 rail worker. Under the new industry module, when you deliver a passenger to an industrial district, you gain 2 rail workers, up to your maximum of 2, and you do not gain stress, and so this makes the industrial buildings much more powerful. This module comes with 1 new action available, which is to convert a building to a new industry. To take this action, the player must spend 2 industry icons, and then takes one of his or her yellow discs and places it onto a pre-printed non-industry building on the board. This building is now considered to be an industry building for all purposes in the game, and what's printed underneath it is no longer relevant. Then, as reward for doing this action, the player gains 3 happiness points and gets to take one of the development cards from the development card ticket books into his or her hand. You do not get one of the industry building cards for producing industry in this way. The Conductor's Manual expansion has a single sub-module, the locomotives. In setup, decide how many locomotives you wish to use. It cannot be more than the number of players. Then place each locomotive onto one of the pre-printed buildings on the board. When using this expansion, when you move a passenger from a location which currently contains a locomotive, you can choose to have the passenger ride that locomotive. If you choose to do this, you must spend one of your rail workers, but you'll gain an extra 2 happiness points for the trip. So this trip, moving this passenger here, would be worth a total of 3 happiness points, and the locomotive would move to the new destination. It will wait there until if or when it is moved again. Locomotives cannot be moved to empty parcels, and a building cannot hold more locomotives than it has squares. So this locomotive could be moved here, but this one could not be moved here.
And that's how to play with the different expansions of Tramways. We hope that you enjoyed the video and we hope that it helps you.
If you'd like to learn the rules of the base game in full, or an overview of the game, we have the videos for you and you can check those out via the links in the description below.
If you enjoyed this video, please let us know by hitting the like button, and you can write your questions and feedback in the comment sections below. You can also join our Facebook group, Meeple University Community, to share your love for board games.
And finally, if you'd like to be among the first notified of what's new from Meeple University, please consider subscribing to our channel. You can click on the Meeple up in the corner to do so, and do hit the bell button for notifications.
Until next time.